What's up, everybody? My name is Phil. This is Underexposed, where you come and you tell Phil. Hope you guys have been doing good. This week has been rough for us, but we've been getting through. I'm here with my lovely wife.
Hello.
So introduce yourself. What's your name?
Oh, Kristen Villanueva. I'm just happy to be here again.
Yeah. Luckily, we've been pretty busy.
Mhm.
It's been pretty good.
So our son has pink eye. And if you remember from our last episode, we spoke that he has autism. So yeah, it was very difficult. It's been very difficult.
It's definitely been new to try to help him. He doesn't know we're trying to help him sometimes, and poor kid. He's just dealing with this very roughly.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to communicate what he's feeling.
Right.
So he's just crying and in his own way complaining, and and so we bought medication. We've been putting these eye drops in, and then that's a whole ordeal.
Yeah. And then he doesn't know that he has to stay away from his face and his eyes. He just keeps scratching and digging in there and making it worse. So,
it wasn't until I took him to a mirror and actually showed him, look, this is why you can't scratch. And he's like, oh no.
Yeah. He straight up panicked. He's like, what's wrong with me? But it's been, other than that, we also got to some recording.
Yes, I got to record a couple more songs, and I'm really excited about that.
They're really nice. I hope you guys can and follow I Am Levite on Instagram. And she should be posting and all that pretty soon about all the songs and all that when we do launch them.
At first I did two singles, but this is the first time I'm working on an album.
Yeah. So look out for all of that. I'll put the link on the descriptions for I Am Levite, so that just check the description, whether you're on YouTube or if you're listening, the description should be there. Just I Am Levite, and you'll be seeing all of the marketing and all that endorsement.
What type of music would you consider this? I don't even know. It's not unheard of or anything.
I would just go with pop. Yeah. But that's me in my little knowledge of genres of music. I would consider it pop, but
pop R&B-ish.
I don't. No. It's not quite. It's like a fusion of pop, R&B, jazz, funk.
Yeah,
it's just dope. All right, just take our word for it. It's a great. They're great songs. They really do talk about good things too. So
talk about mental health. I talk about healthy ways to deal with that. There are times that people don't even realize that they're struggling with their mental health because they're in that, what is it called? Flight mode?
Fight or flight. Yeah.
Fight or flight. And they don't even catch it or realize that they're struggling.
Yeah.
And they're not managing their surroundings very well because of that. So it talks about stuff like that.
Well, this would be a good segue. We have a whole list of things to talk about.
Yeah.
We're not going to go by order, just whatever comes up, whatever we feel like talking about. And one of those things, and I'm going to check it off here, is stress release. Healthy ways to release stress. What do you think for women? Instead of lashing out, at your husband or your boyfriend or your parents or
brother, sister,
whoever, instead of lashing out, what are some healthy ways to
deal with
release some stress?
Oh, release stress. Personally, music, any type of music, depending on what is stressing me out. There's times where I need Christian music, and boy, it's messages that only he can give me. Then there's times where I need to go for a walk I need to get the hell out of this house. Being surrounded by kids every day. I've lost my vocabulary. It's been baby talk. So I need a walk.
Right.
Another thing that I use is edibles. I take edibles and that really balances me out. What else? Also, I take edibles for, I struggle with a borderline personality disorder, so that really balances me out as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I do.
What do you think you could like? What's something you wish you could do to release stress in a healthy way?
Shrooms. Oh, in a healthy way?
I mean, I guess we're going there.
I wish, but no, it probably is not good for me. Okay, ask the question again.
What's a way you wish you could do to release stress in a healthy way? Besides, shrooms or, going for a walk, like what are other ways you can release stress?
I mean, a good movie, going to the movies.
To release stress?
Yeah. To sit, that's what I do. I don't do anything other than walking. I don't really do anything physical because that's just not my thing.
That sounds to me more like ignore stress because you're entertaining yourself as opposed to releasing the stress you have. Although, I mean, if that's a form of release for you.
I never thought of it that way.
Because if you're getting this, like if you're distracting yourself, you're not really releasing the stress.
You're right.
You're just distracting yourself.
Yeah, you're
from
right.
the fact that you have stress. So going for a walk is one way. For a run, some people go for a run.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just hit the gym. Some people will go take boxing and
yeah,
punch.
You're saying a bunch of physical stuff that I don't do. For me, I pray. And I know some people don't believe in God, but I do.
Talk to yourself about it. Whatever's stressing you out, just talk to yourself in the third person.
Oh.
If you don't believe in praying, and really talk to yourself about what's bugging you, why it's bugging you.
Now that you mentioned that, I talk to myself a whole lot, and I think you even heard me.
To me, it's weird, but
I'm always talking to myself, and I didn't know that was a way of releasing until someone told me, like, that's actually healthy what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talk to myself. I even answer myself.
Yeah. For me, I guess men are just a little different. I feel like for men, that's where the physical part comes in. Releasing stress, talking about it doesn't do anything for us because it's not like it goes away. Especially if we're stressing about our finances, if we're stressing about our love life, if we're stressing about anything, the way to release for us would be physical.
Well, I've heard of men going to like therapists, and when they walk out, they say, I feel a weight has been lifted.
I don't know if I would apply that to stress. I don't know. I don't know enough about therapy because I've never been. And so I can't really speak on that. But I know that for me, like hitting a punching bag or hitting the gym, lifting some weights or something, it really, like the repetition of it really gets your mind on like, okay, so I'm building something right now, whether it's muscle. For me, it could be work, just go to work. And I'm building a house or I'm remodeling a bathroom or whatever. I see change happening slowly. So that's like hope. And that's like what gets rid of the stress. Stress is like not having any hope.
Well, I've heard of a lot of women start cleaning.
Yeah, some women stress clean.
I don't. I do not. I hate cleaning. I hate it.
Yeah, well.
I hate everything about it.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You did mention you take edibles, and we can go into that one. There is a question here. on marijuana. Should weed be legal for the whole country?
Yes.
I agree. Now, for all of you religious folk,
tune in right now.
Churchgoers who might judge us for this belief system, let us get something straight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it should be recreational usage.
Mm-hmm.
I think it needs to be prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, we use it because you can buy it in California. You could buy it recreationally, but we use it medicinally.
Yeah.
And I don't personally use it because I don't really have anything that I need to use it for. And I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like, I've used it recreationally just because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But one, I don't really think the smoking is a good way to take it because, I mean, your lungs, you cough.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I was in high school and I smoked weed like crazy, I did it out of like fitting in, and I never liked smoking it, but I liked the feeling of being high.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, I think it should be legal federally. You could put a lot more restrictions. You could tax it even. I don't care what you do to it.
What do you mean by federally?
Federally is nationally. It's only legal in California, not in every state. And there's driving jobs that won't hire you if you have weed in your system because they follow federal regulations. And I mean, it is what it is. So for me personally, I think that it should be legalized as a medical prescription because just like tobacco and alcohol, people will abuse it. For example, I mean, tobacco is one of those things that has some benefits medically even.
Yeah.
And nobody hears from it because we all see it as an addiction, a thing that's just like, okay, yeah, I mean, releases a little stress, you get calmed and all that. What could tobacco be used for medically? Did you know? If you're constipated or if you have a stool problem with like hard stools, you could smoke tobacco. I don't know if you could intake it either. Maybe you could chew it too. In return, this makes your stomach process food a little differently. And you don't have to worry about taking some sort of laxative.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Where did you read this?
Fun times on Google. You know, those times where I stay up at night and I'm just Googling, like reading on my phone. Yeah. There's just random facts. Anyhow, alcohol could also be one of those things that I don't know if there's any medical use for it. I mean, besides rubbing alcohol, but
I mean, wine,
I mean, all of these things, honestly, is just a matter of parents teach your kids. Don't be irresponsible. And we personally believe that it's fine to have a beer. It's fine to have a glass of wine. It's fine to have our personal conviction. For those of you that are religious, if we're still talking to you guys, if you guys haven't clicked out yet, it's not a sin, not for us, because our personal conviction, we have the self-control to say, you know what, one cup, that's it. I'm out with friends and there's no harm in it. It's good flavor, blah, blah, blah. Say what you say. We have a past in drinking and this is not a thing.
This is nowhere near of how we both used to be.
Right. And I'm a big guy. I have a high tolerance of liquor. So this still doesn't mean that I can drink a 24 pack and, oh, it's just a little butt. No, I'm responsible with it. First of all, that's expensive.
Heck yeah.
And I ain't trying to waste no money on, you know, so at the same time, as a wise decision, we don't really drink daily as our diet. It's one of those, like, if we're at a party, we got invited to, we're there for the people. We're there to be an influence. We're there to be in, you know, just love on these people because they're good people and they happen to drink. We're not going to deny a drink. We're guests. but I'm also not going to get drunk.
Yep.
You know, that's where, as a religious individual or as a believer, I don't believe in getting drunk.
Mm-hmm.
None good comes from it. Now, going back to the marijuana
mm-hmm.
and using it medically, I know that there is a stigma, and there's a lot of you people that are going to be like, well, I mean, isn't getting high technically not being sober, so you're still committing sin? Yes. But again, at the same time, we don't use it recreationally.
Yeah.
The same way you take an aspirin for a headache,
Mm-hmm.
and the same way you take Vicodin for pain relief, the same way you take Dayquil or NyQuil and it makes you sleepy. Like, these are all drugs that you take, and it, in a sense, makes you not sober.
Mm-hmm.
If you take NyQuil and you go for a drive, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this being said, my wife does not drive, especially if she's on any sort of medication or on edibles. But there is times where, like, socially and anxiety builds up, depression, like, she's fighting a whole lot of different stuff that drugs that are prescribed by her doctor are not.
They're bad.
They're like 10 times worse compared to the marijuana edibles that we use.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to make her drowsy. They're going to change her character. The side effects include suicide, like
suicidal thoughts.
Right. Suicidal thoughts.
Or suicidal tendencies.
And to me, that's like, all right, we're not doing all that. Yeah. I'd rather give you marijuana in edible form and say, you know what? This is what it is. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to be dealing with all of those side effects and the drowsiness. Yeah. Like, where's my wife at that point?
Exactly.
And say what you want, but that's what we believe here.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to say something?
I don't remember what it was.
So, side point for all of you, it may look like my wife interrupts me for nothing, but she will forget 10 seconds instantly or 2 seconds after she had a thought. If I don't let her release that thought, and I just did that, and she's already forgotten.
And he was all telling me earlier, baby, you got to remember not to just butt in when I'm talking because it affects the sound of the podcast. And I'm like, oh, damn it, I'm going to forget.
But yeah, I mean, to answer that question, I think that marijuana should be legal in all 50 states. Then we'll get rid of all kinds of crime.
I agree.
And I think
really think so.
I think government regulation is difficult to like stand up for, because the government is not the greatest at regulating anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a fascist. But I mean, if you all think that the government is for us, believe what you want to believe. If you think the government doesn't lie to us to get their own gain,
it's okay.
You're so naive. And yeah, so I mean, I think that a lot of it could be just take the time to look into things before you judge. I know we all went to school, and the school taught us that weed is a gateway drug. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that is because you put a red label on it that says don't do it. And what do kids do? The things you tell them not to do. So really, really, the gateway drug is telling kids don't.
That's true.
I mean, you know. And
I mean, and they definitely regret it growing up. I regret everything that my parents told me not to do.
Right.
But they do it.
And for the religious people that just think that, no, you're just using this as an excuse to get high, blah, blah, blah. Believe what you want to believe.
It's okay.
I respect your train of thought. Again, do your research. God put
That's
these
important.
plants here for a reason. There are so many different benefits to CBD oil, to edibles, to all kinds of stuff. There is oil that you could use to massage that has CBD in it, and it will like work as an anti-inflammatory drug, but it's not a drug. It just has crazy amounts of benefits. And I will advocate for marijuana used in a responsible level. Like, if you're just doing it to do it, and we're not going to sit here and say like, oh, we don't do that. We've done that before, and we've gotten friends high and stuff like that. You know, I got no justification for that. But as far as what we believe, yeah, I think that it shouldn't be used recreationally, even though we've done that before. And from this day forward, or from, I don't know, it's been a few months since we've last done that. Maybe even like close to a year, if not more.
Yeah, it was a while back.
But a while back, we decided no more recreational usage. One, it's expensive, and so we don't want to run out of it, especially because you need it, you know, and I stopped looking at it as a recreational thing. And that's it.
And you know what? I felt so bad the first maybe year of doing it because of how I was raised.
Yeah.
In the church that I was raised in, that would not be tolerated.
Right.
And they tell you why. They teach you why. And I understand why they would believe that way. So that being said, when I started using them, I couldn't see them as meds until I started noticing how much better I've been getting. It's helping me control my thoughts. Not all the time, but you know, it's a process. But yeah, like it took me a long time to get used to being okay with that.
Yeah. A lot of the guilt from our parents' teachings and our school's teachings and our church's teachings, and all of that revolves around the same government teaching, which is weed is bad and it's a gateway drug.
Yeah.
And because the government said that, the church, the family, the schools all say it. And because they all say it, we all just believe it.
Yeah.
Until smart people started doing research. And now it's legal in California, and it's legal in different states. And there's no negative feedback from it.
Yeah.
It's reducing crime. It's allowing all kinds of like positive things.
Not unless maybe y'all have heard stories. Let us know.
If you guys have ever seen a video of anybody overdosing on weed, send us that video. We will stop immediately.
Exactly.
But you won't find that video.
Nope.
I think that's enough said about like there's just yeah.
All right. Let's talk about age of consent. Should it be lowered?
Oh boy.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is one of those that I've been kind of like, when the minute we wrote that one down, I didn't know if I had like a solid belief on it. Now, I know there's all kinds of laws that if you're like 20 years old and you're with a 17-year-old, as long as you guys met in high school, like there's a Romeo and Juliet law or something like that allows you guys to continue to be together.
Romeo and Juliet.
That's what they call it or something like that.
I've never heard of that.
And even though you're 20, like, here's the thing. Girls are maturing at a younger age than guys. And that doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're doing. Do I think the age of consent should be lowered? I don't think so. Now, at some point I did think so, just because I'm like, Well, you don't understand. Like, I had a situation once where I didn't know the girl's age, and I didn't bother to ask because she seemed old enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, I hung out with her, met her parents, everything. Like,
really, you met her
nobody
parents
said
too?
a thing.
Wow.
And I had no idea until I was like, "Oh, let's go get a drink," and she was like, "I can't. Well, they're gonna ID me, and I don't have an ID."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Oh, so you're like 19, 20?" And she was like, "No, I'd like just turned 17."
Oh,
And I was shook. I was like, "I'm out."
Get out of here. Go away.
Right. And so I had no idea. And to me, what really like upset me was the fact that like her parents never said anything.
That's
Like,
crazy.
and she never like she was just always texting me, and I didn't know she was at school texting me like at the
Wait.
time.
Wait, I had a question.
Yeah.
Did the parents like want you for her?
No, they were indifferent about it.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't know.
They're just, I think in that case it was bad parenting.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to just let your kid just be out and about, just some random dude and just gonna pick up your daughter, and she's 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get that girls' bodies are quote unquote mature,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean their minds are mature, and
Exactly.
they don't know what's going on. They don't know what can. I think they shouldn't even be doing stuff. They shouldn't even be having sex.
They're getting into kids start getting into adult music at a young age because
Right.
adults just, even us,
Again,
we're just playing our music.
To bad parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that because the adult doesn't want to have to sacrifice their likes,
Yeah,
they're like, whatever.
exactly.
You're mature enough to hear this. And they don't know that the kid's actually obeying the lyrics as opposed to just hearing them.
Oh, snap.
And so if the lyrics are talking about, you know, pop, lock, and drop it, these little kids going to be in their bedrooms pop, locking, and dropping it. And they want to show their friends. And even more so, they want to show a boy or a girl that they like.
Yeah.
And then we got all kinds of stuff going on. Anyways, I don't think the age of consent should be lowered. I know that it's 16 in other countries. And I don't think that's wise.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that we should be involved as parents as to like who your child decides to fool around with? I think that as responsible parents, we've been watching this show with Indian people.
Yes, it's so
They
interesting.
have what's called a matchmaker.
Uh-huh.
I like the idea.
Me too.
Because it's like, I mean, if anyone's going to know more in life about like what you're really going to need, it's your parents.
Exactly.
They've been married for, I mean, if you grew up with a single parent, I mean, I get it. Mm-hmm. You don't understand it, and that's fine.
Also, if you happen to, unfortunately, have parents that struggle with making wise decisions, then this is probably wouldn't be good.
Which is why this country is where it is.
Exactly.
But, I mean, we're coming off as awfully judgmental. Mm. But truth of the matter is we understand. We're not as close-minded as it seems. We understand why you would want your kids to choose because you want them to be happy.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even though your kid may be happy for a moment, they'll be miserable years to come because they didn't take the guidance and you didn't offer it with the intention of trying to stay out of their business. Mm. I know gentle parenting is like coming up and it supposedly works. I don't think it does.
I believe certain things do.
I think it depends a lot on both the parent and the child and the level of maturity. level of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a wide spectrum of range on whether or not gentle parenting is going to work for you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
If you're raising a child in the ghetto and everyone around you is broke and small-minded, and you try to do things that are large-minded,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be suppressed by your community. And your child is most likely going to be suppressed by your community. And even though you're gentle parenting your child when everyone else in the neighborhood is spanking their kids, you may raise a child that you think should be coming up a certain way, but the reality is that all of their friends get spanked. And this child is either going to be bullied because you ain't like us, or you have to do something about trying to help the community also get involved with the gentle parenting stuff. That way, the one person who's actually still beating their kid, that kid is going to understand, like, you know, I feel like it just depends on who you're surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
And as kids, they talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know who gets spanked. I had little white friends that never got spanked. And these were the white friends where, like, I'd go to their house and they would yell at their parents and I'd be like, what is going on here? I can't even raise my voice past a certain decibel.
You can't even give a certain look.
I can't give a certain tone. You know?
Yep.
And to see these friends grow up with gentle parenting, and you know, we weren't rich. And at that point in our lives, we weren't necessarily poor, but we had come out of poverty. And so it was like my first time being exposed to other kids that didn't grow up how I grew up. And it was different. I was so judgmental. I was like, you're a bad kid. Like, you're bad. And they'd be like, no, this is my room. This is my privacy. And I'd be like, your room? Like, these were all concepts I didn't understand. And in return, it made me a good kid, you know, because I was the one getting the belt. And I had respect for adults, and I had all kinds of different points of view on adults. And other kids, maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they do now, but this is why we deal with the things we deal with in society. Now there's so much entitlement because you can't, you know, you're driving down the street and there's road rage, and people don't know how to respond to that because they've been the one to be the aggressor their whole lives. And the minute someone talks to them sideways, they get all offended.
And you're saying this is someone that was a product of gentle parenting?
It could be. Again, these are just my opinions. This is not, you know, I haven't researched this, or like, I'm just some dude in Sacramento or Elk Grove who has noticed. And this, I mean, to my credit, I did grow up all over California. Like I met a lot of people, and I got to see a lot of different mentalities. And in my personal opinion, I think that spanking your kid in discipline the right way is going to work 100 times better than gentle parenting.
Now, as far as like spanking and all that, I agree with that. Where I do agree with on gentle parenting is how we view our own children.
Yeah.
I believe when we were younger, in the homes that we grew up in, it was, you know, very typical Mexican upbringing. So there was a lot of spankings going on, maybe borderline abusiveness, or at least to an outside source. That's what it would look like.
Right.
But we weren't really heard. They wouldn't sit there and ask, you know, like, how you been? Or, you know, once in a while, my parents did do that. You know, I have to be fully honest. They would once in a while. But I'm not using my parents as an example. I'm just speaking like in general. Like a lot of the older adults, they didn't really like sit down and talk to their kids and listen to what they liked and what they have aspirations they have, and their the way they think and all that. I think we need to do that more. There needs to
Right.
be a level of respect towards our
I think I
kids.
can probably explain a little bit on that.
Okay.
Now, you're a third generation Mexican American. Your parents are second generation Mexican Americans, and your grandparents are first generation. Like they traveled to this country.
Yeah.
They didn't speak the language. They became Americans. They got their citizenships and all that. And in return, your dad and your mom probably grew up with parents that spoke a different language, and they grew up speaking English. And now you're the product of an American, mostly American, with hints of a different culture. Now, I grew up, I'm a second generation Mexican American. My dad migrated to this country and he got a citizenship. In return, he only spoke Spanish to us, and he demanded, that we speak Spanish back. He wasn't going to sit there and listen to us talk to him in English. But I understand a little bit on why our parents are a certain way, especially coming from Mexico, that has only recently started transitioning from a second world country to a first world country mentality. And when you transition like that, there's just certain things that you don't do. Listening to a kid wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement. It's not something that is needed for survival. And when you're coming from a second world country, survival is just something that is a part of your culture. So they carry a lot of those tendencies with them. A third world country is full on survival. Second world country is like stepping away from survival. Now they're starting to, indulge in luxury. Starting to. And first world country, it's all luxury. Like it's all, we don't have to hunt at all. We don't have to, we can get picky about that chicken that we buy at the store.
Yeah.
In a second world country, you may have the ability to go buy some food if you have the money. Most people grow their own food. Most people raise their own chickens. And a second world country is transitioning out of survival. And so when our parents come to this country, they're still in that mindset of transition. They don't understand that when you live in a luxurious environment, a first world country, now we have the luxury to pay attention to our kids.
Damn.
Now we have the luxury to pay attention to the things that didn't matter before because survival came first. And so for our parents and grandparents, they came here with a survival mindset of this is what we need. And all of the wants, we're trying to get there. But you're just a kid.
So why would survival cause you to disrespect your kid?
Because your kid, in terms of survival, knows nothing. And so you can't respect something that isn't offering anything. It's just taking. And so I'm not excusing it, but in terms of survival, this kid is costing me. This kid is taking from me. And I love this kid. They do really love you, even through the disrespect. But this kid needs to see that they need to listen to me, not me to them. And so that's the survival mindset that carries on generation after generation. And in one way, shape, or form, it kind of translates to disrespect and lack of listening and lack of, because it's not something you needed in terms of survival. But when you live in a first world country and you're in the States now and you're here and you're living, the dream and all of this hard work that you put into it to getting here, to give your legacy a better future. And this little kid just comes around and flips you off because they learned how to flip you off. And to them, it's hilarious. And you did all of this work. You're finna beat some little kid's butt. I don't care that you're my kid's kid.
Oh, funny.
Your grandparents will slap the heck out of you. And it's a mentality thing. They don't see that you're just a kid. And some may. I can't speak for everybody. I'm just trying to give a perspective here on the difference in mentalities. Like, there are some people that are very patient and they get it. It's just, they're just like that, and good for them. We need that. But a lot of people that come out of that mindset, they do all of this work. They struggle to survive in now this country. And then after surviving, they have to struggle to build something.
And you know what must hurt? Watching your kids pick up or adapt when you haven't quite let go of your home.
Yeah.
Oh,
all of that
hurt.
All of that is things you carry in with you. All of that really, really sucks, because it not only are you struggling to now build a future for your children and grandchildren, you'll probably never be able to communicate with them because now they speak a language that is foreign to you. And you tried to teach your kids to never forget your language. And they probably didn't. But their kids, in return, especially if your kids married the community, they had to learn another culture. And what you thought you were building for you, now your kids are building for them and their mother's side or their father's side of the family. And it's you don't have control anymore. And when you come out of a second world country or third world country to this world, all of this is news to you. You thought it'd be different.
Yeah.
In third world countries, you had to keep everything in the family. If you're a farmer, your kids are farmers.
And you would have to marry a farmer?
Whoever you would marry would just join whatever trade you were.
Oh.
If you were a shoemaker, your kids in return will be shoemakers, and your sons will take over the business. And that's something that you kind of build. If you look at everyone, if you look at people that come from like old money, these really rich, successful, like Donald Trump, his dad did what he does, and his son does what he does. And that's how they keep it going. You perfect a craft and you get really good at it and you duplicate it, you multiply by teaching your kids. And in return, they get better than you were. And then they teach their kids, and in return, they get better than they were, and so on. And then now we have technology, obviously, that, many generations in advanced. And in a first world country, you're taught you could be anything you want. And in a third world country, you're taught you're going to do what your dad does. If you're a woman, you're going to support your husband. Because we don't have the luxury to be just starting over. How ridiculous is it to a third world country mindset for you to show up and everybody is surviving? And the only reason there's a shoemaker is because we need shoes and this land is tough. And the only reason there's a farmer is because somebody has to, because if not, we go right back to hunting. And for that dude's kid to just decide, I don't want to do this, I'm going to be a graphic designer. And you're like, we don't need what kind of? And this little kid has a vision of like, yeah, you're a farmer, but you can't tell because there's no sign on your door. Like, it's ridiculous to them because it's not something we need. They're still looking in terms of necessity. When you live in a first world country, you're taught you could be anything you want because we don't need anything. We have something for everything. So much so that we create jobs out of thin air. Like, you could be someone who packages things for the rest of your life. That's ridiculous to a third world country. Because to them, it's like, just don't package it. Just carry it over to your neighbor's house. If it's not food or shelter, why do we need it? And so now the mindsets are carried on generation after generation. And you show up to a new country because you think I'll have a chance at making more money and I'll have a chance at creating a better future. But you don't consider the fact that you're going to be a whole different group of people by the time you've achieved all that.
Wow.
And so that's why when foreigners get here, it may seem like abuse. It may seem like neglect. But the parenting of it, they're just parenting the way they know how. They're still in that survivalist mentality. They're going to beat you because you're disrespecting them and they know more. Because that's how they know how to discipline. They have no other way to discipline. Me as a second generation Mexican American, I understood this. And my parents weren't abusive, like, crazily abusive. They were actually decent at the disciplining part. My dad had a 3-point system where, like, if this is the third time I tell you to stop and you haven't, now you're getting it. And he'd give us 3. 1, 2, 3. My mom was a little bit more abstract with her beatings. Whatever was near, was her weapon, and it was different. There was no 1, 2, 3. It was until I see a tear. And that, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're just different. They both came from a third world or second world country where the mentality of survival was still around. Now it wasn't so much that we need to farm so that we could have something to eat. It was, they were starting to get jobs and all that. And they understood the concept of money, but they didn't understand the concept of investing or anything like that to this day. And well, now probably, but they're in their 50s, 60s now.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bit late to start investing for retirement when you're about to retire.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the mentalities. They also grew up understanding that when you get to a certain age, your children have to take care of you. Because in a second world country, you didn't have care homes or programs or stuff like that. Now, probably that they're transitioning from second world to first world. Like, it's still Mexico right now is in a very good place economically right now.
Oh.
They now have control of all the lithium, or most of the lithium in the world. Like, that's where we get our batteries from. And
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they're coming up on the first world country scale. Everyone has a job now. Like, there's still some regions and parts that, people just farm and they live like a third world country, but that's just out of choice. And I get it. The mentalities are different. You're not going to convince everybody from one day to another, and when they start coming to this country, those are things they don't realize. It's not neglect. They don't see it as, I don't love my kid.
Yeah.
They definitely love their kids. This is their future. This is why they came here, for their kids.
Yep.
And so they just need their kids to pull their own weight because that's what they grew up seeing.
Makes sense.
And here in this country, kids don't pull their own weight. It's like, you're just a kid. We'll take care of you till you're 18. Then you're out. And in Mexico, it was more of like we'll take care of you. But you're going to have to learn how to also take care of you.
Mm.
And then we won't kick you out at 18, but you're definitely going to be helping around
Yeah, you
a
have
lot.
to carry your weight.
Yeah. And in return, these kids learn how to be independent. They start learning, and when they get married, they coexist, and it works. Probably, I would say a little bit more than the U.S. I think their divorce rates are somewhere around like 20%.
Yeah.
15 to 20%, compared to the U.S. is like 51, 52% divorce rates.
I think it went higher recently.
It's been a long time since I've looked into that, but
I think it's in the 70s now.
that's crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. The mentality of gentle parenting can work in the right environment.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure it can work in the right
Yeah.
environment. Will it work because you as the kid want it, just because your friends have it and your parents are not doing it because their mentality isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
It probably just won't work even if they tried. And the reality is that our kids are growing up talking to their friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying, hey, I like that their parent does this because obviously nobody wants to be spanked.
Yeah.
And so now they come to us like, why do we get spanked and they don't? Well, because that's just not the cards you were dealt. If I start trying to gentle parent my kids personally, because I have no experience in growing up that way, I feel like it's just not going to work. But one thing is for sure. I know how I felt when I was a kid. So I, in turn, better the way I raise my kids compared to how I was raised.
That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have gentle parenting, but I just remember feelings and I work off that.
Yeah. So I put my phone away. I forget that I need it. I'm going to ask the next question.
Oh, okay.
We'll get into a religious topic.
Okay.
And this one I like very, very much.
What is it?
This one is about free will.
Oh, yeah. He has a lot of interesting facts about this.
Yeah. I mean, perspective, I would say.
Perspectives.
I've been asked by friends or people that don't believe in God and all that, like, is God really all knowing? And if he is, doesn't that mean that we're programmed and there's no point? Because no matter what, you'll always end up where he knows you will.
Mm.
So why try and all this stuff? And so they seem to think that if it's true, the way we teach free will or the way we teach how God is, then free will can't exist. And if God is all knowing, I can see why people would think that way. But this is the way I look at it. And I can explain having free will along with God being all knowing. In the same way that we trust in our GPS to get us to a location, we don't have to listen to the GPS. We can know a different route. But the GPS is telling you this is the quickest way to get there. Now, some of you may agree with your GPS, some of you may not, whatever. It's the same thing with God. Some of you agree with God, some of you don't. And sometimes the GPS will tell you to go. Ultimately, let's just, and for the analogy, the GPS, Jesus, is telling us to go and be holy.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get there, this whole road, this whole process is sanctification. And the reason I know that God is all-knowing and we have free will is because God doesn't exist in the parameters of our time.
Mm-hmm.
If he created time then he doesn't have to obey the laws of time. Time is linear to us. And so in return, all we can see is past, present, and future. But with God, he doesn't see time as linear. It's more of like a blanket. It's not just one line going from point A to point B. For him, it's a variety. He's not in our quantum realm. He's outside of it. So in return, he can see that if you make a left turn, he can still reroute you to get to that place. That's what your GPS does, rerouting. Boom. But you're the one driving your life. You're the one making all your decisions. And he knows that if you make a left turn, there's going to be a dead end. And he knows that if you make a right turn, there's going to be a rerouting. He knows if you go straight, you'll probably get there. He knows if you make a U-turn, what you're going to see on the road, because he's looking at time as a road, as a map. It's a blanket. There's all kinds of events in this, perspective of his. And he knows what decision, every little decision you make is like another turn. And he's going to get you from point A to point B. But God is complex. He's not just in our parameter of understanding, because he created time. So that's how I explain God's all-knowing ability. It's not so much that he doesn't know what you're going to choose to do, because he knows your heart. But he also knows that you have a choice to repent of your decisions. You have a choice to change your mind and your decisions. And he knows that when you make that decision, you're making a different turn. And ultimately, he'll lead you to start listening to him. And when you start just obeying and listening, following Jesus, he'll take you where you need to go. That doesn't mean there won't be interruptions on the road. There's always signs of road work ahead. That means you have to do work in your life. There's always rerouting. Someone else's decisions might interfere with yours. Those are called collisions on the road. All of this plays a role on time. And God, being outside of time, can see where time can take you. And he can see every decision you make will get you there or over there. And so, yeah. For those of you that wanted that perspective.
Yes, it's very interesting. I like it.
You ask now.
Evil. Why does it exist?
Because without evil, good wouldn't exist.
Right.
You need evil in order to perceive what is good. And in just terms of good and bad, bad can't exist without good, and good can't exist without bad, because that's how you perceive the difference between the two. If things were always good all the time and evil didn't exist, we wouldn't know it. Now, for those people that ask, like, why is there so much evil in the world? If there is a God and he's all good, should he step in and do something? No. We are his creation, and he respects our decisions. And although some people may be flipping out right now because how do you respect a serial killer's decisions? It's because that serial killer has to decide whether or not to kill or to not kill. But in order for him not to be programmed, he has to have the choice. For a rapist to decide to rape or not to rape, he has to have the free will. And because we have free will, and because you need to have free will, they do also, because then it's not fair.
I know that it's really hard to hear something like that especially if you're listening and you are a victim of that.
Right.
Just hear right now that I too am a victim of rape. And it takes a lot of, what would you say, wisdom or selflessness to understand what you're saying right now.
Yeah. I by all means, I know that it's very hard to listen to these topics.
You have to put your feelings to the side and hear it for the truth. Hear the truth for what it really is.
Yeah. And you can be hurt with God. You could take that up to him.
Mm-hmm.
He can heal you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone who's just grown bitter, forgiveness is not for them.
Yeah.
Forgiving the aggressor is not for them. It's for you.
You're the one that needs the healing.
They sleep wonderful at night, especially in that prison cell.
Yeah.
If they're in prison, if they're not in prison, even better. Like, they sleep just fine without the guilt in their mind. You don't. You experience pain. You're a victim. You experience the trauma. And in order for you to stop experiencing all that, you need to forgive.
I'll share my story. I had a lot of resentment towards God because of that. I wanted to leave Christianity, leave my relationship with him, leave church. I wanted to leave it all. I was angry because he never stepped in. And that's one of the reasons why I was very angry at him. And it wasn't until many years later, I hadn't healed from it. I was being triggered. And I went to my room, started crying and yelling at him, waiting for him to say something too. And when he finally did, he said, well, he's my child too. It's not just you. And I started crying because he was right. I was spending so much energy on this person I hated so much. I wanted him to die. And it wasn't just one, like it was multiple men that did this to me. And your first feeling is you want them to die. But it's when you have a relationship with God, he starts teaching you things. And that's something I had to learn. Every person that's done me wrong, not just the rapists, every person that has done me wrong, that has caused me to reach this state of not trusting anyone, those people are his children too. And they need forgiveness too. And they need healing from whatever it is that's causing them to do what they're doing to you. They need that healing. They're doing it for a reason. So just keep that in mind.
Not to say that forgiveness is gonna do it all for you. I mean, the healing process, it's long.
Mm-hmm.
And it all depends on how willing you are to release. And every day.
How willing you are to shatter over and over and over again. Yeah. Because that's what healing is. You have to go through it. You got to walk through it. Can't go around it. Can't go under it. Can't go over it. You got to walk through that. And it takes a lot of balls to do it.
Healing can be looked, and I know people are going to look at this and question it, but healing can be a form of sickness. In the sense that when your body detects something wrong, like a virus, your body immediately starts to kill everything in that general location, which is why we get fevers, which is why we get all kinds of indicators like headaches, stomach aches. This is all your body combating whatever is bad inside of you. And so the sickness or the symptoms may look like we got to get rid of that. Mm-hmm. You may be going through all kinds of withdrawals. You may be going through trauma. And all of this is an indicator that your body or your mind is responding to something negative. Yeah. But forgiveness is the first step. Mm-hmm. It's the first sip of medication to help you numb the pain.
Boy, you can feel the difference.
Yeah. Forgiveness is a way to numb the pain and say, you know what? Now I can start to articulate. Now I can start to analyze what happened. And it doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. It'll probably hurt a little less now that you have forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start touching that wound without the medicine of forgiveness.
Hold on. I'm going to forget. Let me say it. Forgiveness helps you. Darn it. I lost it. Forgiveness. I have to think about it now.
So if you keep touching your wound without the medication of forgiveness, which is a numbing medication, it's just going to hurt a lot more. Every time you think of your past, every time you think of what happened, every time you think of the pain that you went through, the trauma, you'll be in severe mental pain.
So for me, when I forgave, I was still healing, but now that I had forgiveness, I was able to go through this with a clear mind, with a right mind, not thinking with my emotions. I was able to think, well, logically, but
I can explain it with an illustration again.
Okay.
If you get shot, you have to use some, like, let's say the bullet is still inside of you. It's in your chest or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just dig in there and try to pull the bullet out. You have to numb it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to either, take whatever medication you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors will numb you up. And then you can think clearly. Because if you start digging in there trying to pull that bullet out, you won't even be able to think clear enough, or like you're just going to try to rush through it. You're going to go through a world of hurt. Why? Because you didn't numb it. And that's what forgiveness is, numbing it. That's why we forgive.
It numbs the pain.
We forgive our enemies because now we can analyze and in return be cautious.
There you go.
Because I'm not finna get hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can look at, I forgave you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the bullet that's doing damage inside, I'm not going to leave you in my life.
Yeah.
I have to pull you out.
Yeah.
And I can only pull you out of my life with forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it'll hurt less. And in return, I can heal.
Mm-hmm.
Take my time and go over and over, patch it up, do everything I got to do to heal. If I leave the bullet in there, it'll probably do some damage over time, especially if it's, a lead bullet that'll start to do all kinds of damage. But yeah, so forgiveness is the first step. It's the, I forget the medical term for it. I just keep saying numbing.
I don't know.
Yeah, forgiveness is the first step. Then you can start on your articulation process and start really seeing what the problem is, why you got hurt in the first place, what were you doing there getting shot, Then you can start making decisions to avoid being hurt again. And it doesn't necessarily mean you'll heal completely, but sometimes the sickness is the healing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the pain, sometimes the way you're reacting to it, like you just got to do that in private because you're going to affect the people around you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be perfect once you forgive.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiving may just be the first step to a world of trauma that you're trying to heal from. And you may have to quarantine yourself after you forgive because you're going to go through a sickness
big time
that is going to heal you because your body is fighting this virus of trauma.
And the whole time, God is just giving you wisdom.
Yeah.
What a gift. Man, this world needs more wisdom.
Yeah. For sure. How are we on time? We're fine. We got plenty. So yeah, let's we'll go back to our secular topics.
Okay.
Just we'll end with this last topic, and we'll try to elaborate as much as we can.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let's talk about gay marriage.
Cool.
Should it be legal? Obviously, we live in a country where it is,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this is more of like a term of convincing for the religious people because
Wait, all over the country?
I think so. I mean,
Oh, I thought it was just California.
didn't Obama put some sort of medal on Ellen DeGeneres and like they're married and whatnot? Like,
I don't know. I remember seeing that.
yeah, I think it's legal. Let's Google it real quick. Sorry, forgive our ignorance. We're just giving our opinions, okay?
Yeah.
We don't know everything. So chill. Let's see here. Let's see. Is same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states? If my phone could just hurry up. Why isn't there just a yes or no answer?
I wish.
The Senate passed the landmark legislation proposal to protect same-sex marriage. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I guess it is.
All over.
Yeah. Federally, yeah.
Oh. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's Supreme Court. Anyways, there's so many people against it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are religious.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where I stand as far as a believer in God. I will support your right to decide. I'll support your right to decide to get married with the same sex because it's your choice. And God also gives you that choice.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to choose whether or not to do it. So why would I vote against it if God is giving you that choice?
Exactly.
Now, do I believe it's morally correct or religiously correct? No.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's not the way God designed it. And I'm sure you were born with these attractions, same-sex attractions. I've talked about it in other podcasts. If you are born with same-sex attraction, it doesn't mean it's okay.
Exactly.
Because some people are born with bloodlust and rage.
Yeah.
And they would love to go on a killing spree.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to control that and say no.
Yep.
Some people are born pathological liars.
Mm-hmm.
Since the day they were kids, everything was no when they did, or yeah when they didn't.
Yeah.
And their whole lives they've lied, and they're just like that. It doesn't mean it's okay. So if you have same-sex attraction, I feel for you. That sucks.
Yeah.
That really does, especially if you love God and you want to continue to follow him. And I have to ask you this question. If you're a believer and you have same-sex attraction and you're really struggling with deciding whether or not you will pursue your attractions, do you love God more than you love yourself?
That's what it falls on.
That's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
If you love yourself more than you love God, you'll always decide and choose what you want.
Can I share?
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of you don't know that I was born with that. I had same-sex attraction, but I also liked guys. So I was bisexual ever since I was a little girl. I was very attracted to girls. But as I got older and I started building a relationship with God, a real relationship with God, then I started learning why he didn't design it that way. And even though till this day, I wish Pastor Michael Todd said it, and I'm on the same page. I wish being gay was okay with God, but it's not. So the love that I have for him encouraged me. His every day was encouraging me to, what's the word? Suppress?
I would call it killing your flesh. Because your flesh has this desire.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that desire and attraction and all of this is chemistry. And because it's chemistry, it can be altered and it can be controlled. And it's part of your flesh. The Bible says that when we're in heaven, there's no point for recreation. Like, there's no point for, there's no point in having sex with each other anymore. Like, we're in heaven now. Why are we multiplying? Like, now I don't know what God's plan is. I mean, if he allows it, cool. Then we'll have chemistry up there too. But as far as I'm concerned, the way God designed it, chemistry was made for us to mate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if your attraction is to women and you're a woman, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the attraction.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean, men do this all the time, probably a little bit more than women do, but we look at a beautiful woman, we're going to look and we're going to acknowledge she's a beautiful, and you know when she is a sexy woman. What's wrong is trying to go and have sex with her.
Yeah.
At every chance you get just because you're straight.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're a married man. You have what belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to acknowledge that she's a very attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
The attraction isn't what's gonna send you to hell.
It's the act.
It's the act, and it's your mind. It's your mentality.
Yep.
Where your heart is, where your mind puts its treasure.
And that's why the word suppress wouldn't work.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Because suppressing it doesn't do anything. You're just starving your flesh. And your flesh will act desperately when it's starving. You have to kill your flesh.
Yeah.
And this is why you die daily. You pray daily. You never let go. You always put your identity in Jesus. You always put your identity in him. You make his will your will. Because then you're killing your flesh. And what he wants, I want. And
now till this day, I'm fine. I'm not tempted to go talk to an attractive girl. I see an attractive girl and I even tell you, like, damn, she's hot. That's about it. Like, I have no problem.
There's no fantasizing. You're not feeding your flesh anymore.
Exactly.
Or starving it.
I don't need it. I've reached the point now where I believe I'm healed. No, not healed. Just strong enough.
You have self-control.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. It's just self-control. I struggled with the addiction of smoking cigarettes. And I walk by a store, someone smoking outside. I like the smell. I can acknowledge that. I can acknowledge the attraction. I miss the feeling of the cigarette being in my fingers when it's cold, having a cigarette with a coffee. But for me, it's a personal conviction. Yeah. Because I idolized smoking. And so it's sinful to me. Where I can say, you know what? I relied on this feeling more than I relied on God. I loved this feeling more than I loved God. And I'm not gonna wake up an animal I killed
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to resurrect an animal I worked so hard to kill.
Perfectly said.
The attraction is still there. Doesn't do nothing for me, though. It's just an attraction. That's all it is. It's just a chemical. And when you can look at it that way, you can now look at people who struggle with same-sex attraction and say, you know what? You can do this too.
Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get rid of the attraction. That's where I feel like a lot of those ministries that started the Pray the Gay Away ministries, like, I can see the intention behind it, and God bless you for trying, but you didn't understand.
Yeah.
You're trying to get rid of an attraction that's natural to their body.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starving this attraction. You're not killing it. You're starving it. And in return, we saw a lot of people that came out of that program and pretended to not be gay.
It's all it becomes, just a mask that you wear.
Yeah. And so now...
But you're dying inside.
Of course. Because you're starving.
Yeah, it sucks.
You're starving your flesh. And really, really what you're killing is your spirit.
Mm.
That's why that feeling of dying inside is happening, because your spirit needs your body to function.
Damn. Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, when you kill your body, your spirit lives. When you kill your spirit, your body lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then your soul is what's going to pay the piper.
Yeah.
Your soul is what ends up paying the price. When God comes and we're all judged.
Yeah.
Your soul is what's going to answer. And we'll be there with this confusion of, I thought.
Yeah.
If only I knew. So, yeah. It's just attraction. So, we'll end on that note.
Yeah. If you guys have any opinions or anything you want to add to this,
right, feel free to let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Send me a message. I don't care. Do whatever. Subscribe, follow, share, like, all that fun stuff, whatever. If you have any topic ideas that you want to hear more of, I know we have some fun ones in here that we haven't gotten to, like aliens.
Yeah.
We'll get to them.